Perhaps no public high school ever saw a run of athletic accomplishment quite like this. Winning an unprecedented 8 state championships from 1987 to 1998, featuring players like Udonis Haslem, Doug Edwards, Steve Blake, the legendary coach Frank Martin, Miami Senior High School was synonymous with one thing and one thing only: winning.
Go back to 1987, which is the first one we won, and there was so much enthusiasm in this community. You know, that was a dream come true.
I'd like to show you our state championship trophy.
The Stings won their 3rd title in 4 years.
In a city that's home to massive teams like the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, of course the U, who were in their prime winning football national championships year after year, instead it was a public high school, Miami Senior High, standing tall as one of the most intriguing and most successful programs in all of South Florida. And as someone who didn't live through this era of high school basketball dominance, I wanted to know more about this fabled team. And the good news for me is that back when I started my career in sports, just a young lad at ESPN, I made a friend by the name of Jaime Gutierrez. And in addition to producing live shows at major sporting events like the NASCAR Cup Series, Super Bowl 49 in Arizona, the 2015 NBA Finals, and even the 2016 Olympics in Brazil, Jaime also happens to be the director of a documentary called The Asylum. It's a film about Miami's golden era of high school basketball dominance and its ensuing downfall riddled with controversy of recruiting violations. The name, of course, comes from its venue, nicknamed The Asylum for its hostility, the fans sitting on top of the court, screaming at each other, the late South Florida summer turning into early fall, making it 120 degrees in this gym, just a pure cauldron of basketball chaos. And like a psycho, this is the type of stuff that I absolutely live for, and so I wanted a more in-depth look at this. So we had Jaime on, and my first question to him was why exactly he wanted to make this film in the first place.
I thought of like, what's a good story in Miami that hadn't been told? You know, everybody knows the U, obviously. You know, the University of Miami 30-30, right? And at that time, you know what I'm saying, they were playing. The Miami High was like the team, you know what I'm saying? Like they were the team during those U days too, you know? That's why like they would fill the arena of the Miami Heat with like 12,000 people. Talking about a high school basketball game in Miami. And we got UM, who's like national championship every other year, you know, in football. So yeah, so it was like, you know, they carried basketball for a while here in Miami. They really did, you know, and it was just like, it was epic to see, to watch, to hear, you know. So when I played against them, I saw it firsthand, right? And then my coach in high school, he coached over there for 10 years and then he became our coach at my high school. So the connection was there. So obviously like later on, like I said, later on in my career, I'm like, damn, what's a good story to tell? And so I already had kind of that connection with a couple of the guys there, the coaches, XYZ. I'm like, man, you know what? Let me talk to my coach and see what he thinks about, you know, kind of doing a documentary on Miami High. Because like I said, I already had so many legendary guys that had played through it. You have Doug Edwards, his 2 brothers, Steven and Alan, who played in Kentucky and UM. Then you had UD at one point. Then you had Brent, you know, who played at University of Florida. You know, you had Stephen Blake, who played there. You know, you had Antonio Latimer, who was a very good Puerto Rican, you know, player. You had a bunch of people, you know, who just were really talented, but their story had never been told, you know. And then obviously there was a little bit of controversy with that story. So everybody likes the controversy and the drama, but also the highlight of the careers.
But as for the actual Asylum, it's unthinkable to imagine what this place was like to actually play in. You had fans sitting on top of the court, fans trying to climb in through windows, all while it's 120 degrees and Miami High is up 35 on you. Jaime, though, he actually lived this.
You know, October here in Miami, it's like 95 degrees still outside. It's like 120 inside.
God,
you couldn't survive.
What were those games like physically, like watching a game in that atmosphere in the Asylum in Miami in the summer? Like, what's that like?
The Asylum, madness, you know, simple madness, period. I mean, I played one time in there while there was still no AC. Crazy. You just come out drenched. You know, it's like straight from your shirt, shorts, socks, everything, you know? And then you ask the guys who played in there for a couple years, like you ask UD, you ask Brent Wright, you know, you ask Sylvan Robinson, you ask Stephen Blake, you ask Raja Bell, who Raja Bell played high school down here. He played like 2 or 3 times in the Asylum. He's like, man, it was the toughest atmosphere. It prepared them for college, bro. Like the college was like, yeah, it's walking the cake, man. We got AC, you know, there's beautiful lights in here, you know. It was crazy, man.
And to think of those conditions mixed with the talent that Miami Senior High had on their team, They put out teams that had as many as 8 Division I players. Insane for a public school. You had Udonis Haslem, a Miami legend like no other, who went to Florida and then spent 20 years with the Miami Heat. You had Doug Edwards, who went on to play at Florida State and was a first-round draft pick. Steve Blake played there and went on to win a championship at Maryland with the Terps in 2002. And of course, Frank Martin, who's responsible for one of the most legendary Final Four runs we've ever seen with South Carolina. However, all good things unfortunately must come to an end. And the downfall of Miami Senior High was one filled with tribulation and controversy, as the Florida High School Activities Association ended up stripping Miami High of its Class 6A title for recruiting violations, putting to an end one of the high school's most dominant dynasties ever. But in the end, there was a deeper purpose to all of this. The lives that were touched by these coaches and the lives that were changed by these coaches went much beyond the coach-player relationship and much more into the realm of father-son. I thought Jaime said it best.
Coaches like Frank, so if you remember like him at Kansas State, you know, and then at South Carolina and stuff like that, you would remember like he's crazy tough, right? So I want people to remember that, like, while some people see it from the outside, like, man, this guy's crazy, or like Shakey was hard on these kids, you know, or all the coaches were hard on these kids, and the circumstances of the surroundings that they had were hard, they made it out. You know what I'm saying? There's always a way to make it out. If you work hard, you know, you look forward and you look ahead of what you need to do, that you got a purpose, you feel me? No matter how hard the circumstances are.
Beautifully said. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on your way out of here so you can stay tuned for much more sports content.